Hi everybody, on behalf of Dyspraxia DCD Ireland, I would like to thank Wexford Public Library for inviting us to talk about living with dyspraxia for parenting today. This will be a very chilled out kind of an interview between myself and my daughter. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Lorraine Mooney. I'm a mum of two daughters with dyspraxia, now aged 22 and 20. I've been involved with Dyspraxia Ireland since my daughter Sarahann, who's going to introduce herself in a moment, was officially diagnosed at 11 years of age. And with that, I've been helping with parents of children with dyspraxia DCD. I also set up a teen group for 12 to 17-year-olds as well about 7 years ago. And I'm also a fully qualified and accredited counsellor and psychotherapist, general counsellor and psychotherapist, but I will work with a lot of people with dyspraxia and co-occurring neurodiverse conditions. So now I'm going to pass over to Sarahann.
Hi, my name is Sarahann Mooney. Like my mom said, I was diagnosed with dyspraxia when I was 11 years old. I'm now 20 years old and I'm currently studying music and English in DCU and I'm really enjoying that. I've also done a good few talks for Dyspraxia DCD Ireland, so I like to share my experience of living with dyspraxia and dealing with the mental health side effects of dyspraxia.
Great. So we're going to kind of just explain dyspraxia a little bit for anybody that's watching the interview that maybe isn't 100% sure what it is. And correct me if I leave anything out, Sarahann. So the main issues with dyspraxia that people would know about is what your gross and your fine motor skills. So difficulties with coordination as well. So your gross motor skills would be like hopping, skipping, jumping, anything that involves sports. Your gross motor skills would be doing up buttons, shoelaces, anything that's integral with your fingers, writing, things like that. But what also affects people with dyspraxia would be like their executive functioning skills. So that's, taking orders, being able to do things in concession. Also, it can affect how they are emotionally. They can have extreme emotions, not being able to deal with that. Spatial awareness would be an issue. Also, organisation would be an issue. Keeping up things that take them longer to do. They can get more tired. Did I leave anything out, Sarah?
No, I don't think so.
We'll move on. We'll talk about things like having issues with social, problems, and friendships, things like that, and then move on throughout the years. So what we thought would be an idea to do is kind of go through the years a little bit. And so I would just talk as a parent now, just quickly saying about the first signs that Sarahann would have had dyspraxia DCD, although I didn't know that. So Sarahann didn't meet her developmental milestones as one is documented they should. She didn't crawl, she bum shuffled. She also would have had issues regarding spilling things and picking things up and dropping them. She used her sippy cup for a long time, and so when we go out, I used to have to bring lots of different clothes with me because she would mess them up. She found cutlery difficult as she even got older. And also with her speech, she had a little bit of a lisp and she would have her own words for things. Some of the things I didn't think were an issue, some of the things I was concerned about. And anytime I questioned it, I was told, look, she's just taking her time, development, and I was similar as a baby. So I just kind of accepted her unconditionally, and as motherhood was new to me, I was just loving her as she was. So as a young toddler, Sarahann, you would have been very confident. Do you remember any of your toddler years?
Not particularly as a baby, obviously, but I do remember finding like my knife and fork really difficult and finding it really hard to use a knife and fork and just kind of giving up and ending up just using a fork and like stabbing at the food, which I kind of still do. I remember like watching other kids being able to tie their laces and me not being able to do that, and that's kind of like my most earliest memories. And I guess I remember always kind of being the one who was like spilling stuff in the house. Like it was just a very common sort of thing that I noticed. I was always the one that was dropping and spilling things and stuff like that. So that's the most earliest memories that I have, really.
Okay, so then joining school, young person with dyspraxia, or maybe not knowing at that stage, because normally they're not assessed so young, which is understandably because each person can reach their milestones at different levels. For young people joining school, would it be difficulty like with colouring and holding the pencils and the crayons, maybe being a little kind of clumsy around the place and speaking out of turn and things like that. So can you remember anything in the junior parts of school or that being an issue? One thing I do remember is you found it difficult to stand in line. You were always falling out of line. So is there anything you can tell us about that?
Well, when starting primary school, I definitely remember being a lot more confident walking in than I was when I left primary school. Some of the difficulties kind of included organization and having to remember to do my homework and stuff, and I would forget, and the teachers would, you know, give out to me for not remembering, and that created like a sense of anxiety for me around school. And the issue really was that I was struggling, not necessarily that I just didn't really want to do the work. So it would have been a lot easier maybe if I'd gotten help on that rather than just kind of being given out to, because I was just getting really anxious coming into school every day. I can remember falling off my chair and stuff, and the teachers used to think that I was swinging on my chair, but and obviously they would give out because that's dangerous, but I wasn't doing that. I was just really clumsy that I would just fall off my chair. I remember never being the one that was good at sports, being the one that nobody particularly wanted to play with when it came to anything like that, like sports. I just remember always being the one that was really, really bad. And in sports day, I remember always being like the worst out of everyone, really. So I started to feel kind of different then. And having to sit still for such a long time in the classroom, it really kind of bothered me, and I found it really hard, and I'd be really fidgety and I wouldn't really be able to concentrate. So that's kind of the earliest memories from primary school.
Yeah. And then as you went on, I can remember around third and fourth class, trying to do your homework would take you forever. And also the spellings, I think it's ingrained in both our lives because we didn't know what was going on, because you would learn a word, it would take us ages, I'd break it up and we'd do our best with it. I think you'd got it, and then a few minutes later I'd ask you again and you'd say it backwards or whatever. So, and that was at the same time that I said it to the teacher, and she said, oh, by the way, yeah, I have noticed something. And by the way, all your report cards said not trying hard enough, easily distracted, not paying attention. So they were kind of just coming up over the years in the report cards, although a lovely girl, very pleasant, doesn't cause any trouble. So I approached the teacher, and we thought it might be dyslexia, and also that something to do with your eyesight. So we had gone to opticians, and it took years, and even a trip to Temple Street's opticians keep saying she can see fine, and you're like, I can't. And it was obvious you were getting headaches from after school, you felt sick. And we didn't realize at the time that it was actually a behavioral ophthalmologist that you need, that it was an issue with the muscles because you had been straining for so long. But these are things we found out afterwards. So it took us 3 years to get you diagnosed. Can you remember what that 3 years was like, of things getting progressively worse for you because the work was getting harder?
I remember feeling really ill and really sick coming home from school, and like always having a headache and always being exhausted, and things started to get harder. Like as the work got harder, the more exhausted and the more I found it difficult, the more, you know, notes we had to take down from the board. Like for me, it would just take really long for it to register from my mind to the paper, and I was always felt like I was trying really, really hard, and it just wasn't really going anywhere, and I just really needed help at the time. You know, I really was trying hard, and it was so disheartening to try so hard and not get anywhere. And I remember you like sitting down with me and doing spellings with me, and like you were there with me, so it was proof I was doing the work. Oh, sorry, I dropped something. I was doing the work, and I remember just looking at you and being like, I swear to God, I'm trying, not realizing there was something maybe wrong, but just being really, really frustrated. And then when I did get diagnosed, for me, it was like a huge relief. A lot of the times people ask me, you know, should I tell my child? Will it make them feel different, or will it be more of a hindrance? But for me personally, I can't speak for everyone, but for me personally, it was a huge relief because everything that I'd been going through made sense, and it was for a reason, and I can understand why I was dealing with what I was dealing with, rather than feeling like I was cursed, because that's what I had led myself to believe. I was like, well, I'm trying really hard and I always fail. I'm always the one to be bad at the sports. Like, I'm always tired. I'm always the one that's dropping things. Like, clearly, like, I'm cursed, but because as a kid, it's hard to understand. And then once I got diagnosed, I could learn about it and realize, oh, this is why I actually am this way, and it's not a bad thing. And it's not because, I'm just have really bad luck or there's something wrong with me. It really helped to make me feel better. And once I realized what I was dealing with, then I could tackle it and get the help that I needed, really. So for me, it was like a huge, great relief to be diagnosed.
So you're pro getting assessed, giving a label, because a lot of people kind of don't like labeling children. So your kind of reasoning for that is that it gives you something to understand about yourself, so you don't think that I'm weird or there's something wrong with me. Actually, I'm dyspraxic and my brain works a little differently.
Yeah.
And this is how it affects me, and this is what I can do to get support or to help myself. Or am I right? Am I saying it right? Is that how you'd feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's just for what worked with me. I mean, I don't know, some people might feel different about it, but for me, it doesn't even feel like a label. It doesn't feel like I'm being put in a box, because everyone with dyspraxia is so different, and everyone deals with it in their own way, and everyone has their own different symptoms. No two people with dyspraxia are the same. Like, I have a lot of friends with dyspraxia from the teen group. My sister as well is dyspraxic, and I can see the differences. And I still feel individual. I didn't ever feel like I was being put in a box. I always felt, okay, this is just a part of me, like the way I have brown eyes, I'm dyspraxic. It's just a part of me. It's not me as a whole, but it is who I am. In a way, it is an identity.
Yeah. So it doesn't define you. It's only part of you.
No.
And there's a lot to learn for you to understand yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a positive thing to know that you have dyspraxia, and it's not something that people should be quietly talking about. It's okay. I know as a family we're proud to say to people, oh, we're dyspraxic, that's why I do this or that, in a proud way. Okay. And talking about your sister there, she wouldn't have dropped things as much as you. I know she does drop things, but some of the things are similar and some of the things are dissimilar. You would have been a lot more confident than her at an early stage, and she was less confident. But the similarities, the both of you found sports very difficult, although you tried judo and she didn't like judo, and you did excel at judo. So you're right, we're all unique and we're all different.
No.
So I just want to look at the kind of the social side of it, because the understanding is if you haven't had the support and you don't understand properly what's happening to you, the anxiety builds up. But also the social side of things, what was friendships like for you in primary school? Did you understand friendships and the way they worked? What was the difficulty there?
Not really. I found it kind of hard to make friends and how to initiate it. I kind of just stuck with the same person, and when that one person wasn't really around, I didn't really know what to do. So I found myself playing like with my imagination and making up imaginary friends and playing with my shadow and stuff, because that's the kind of thing that I enjoyed. But the thing about, obviously, it happens a lot with kids, is if they don't understand something or they see something different, they're quick to isolate and judge. So obviously, I mean, not obviously, but I did get bullied during my primary years, and people said things to me that really stuck with me for a long time. So that was kind of hard, because I was trying to overcome my insecurities that I had coming to school, feeling anxious every day, and I didn't feel good enough for the teachers, and then I also wasn't feeling good enough for my peers. So school at that time started to become a place where I really didn't feel like I belonged.
So it was a huge impact on you. And you only got diagnosed in 6th class properly. I mean, it was a 3-year battle, and I was lucky. I was looking at dyslexia, and we actually had you down for an assessment, and then something brought me onto dyspraxia, which I had never heard of before, not knowing I even had it myself. But anyway, it's another story. I then found Dyspraxia Ireland, and I remember the day I rang and spoke to Harry Conway, and I'll always be indebted to him for that, because it was the first time I spoke about your symptoms, and he was like, Yeah, that's okay. That sounds like dyspraxia. We can help you. We can get her assessed for it and we can get her support for it. And I never forget those words from him, and I never forget the support they gave us. Obviously, that's why I got involved and volunteered for so many years. So moving on, that was very hard for you because you went from primary to secondary, and all of a sudden now you were told, use the laptop, you have a new school, new uniform, changing classes, more books, more subjects. So talk me through how that affected you.
Well, the transition from primary to secondary school, things got a lot harder because I had to be more organized, and I struggle with personally organizing my thoughts and organizing the things around me. So my like having a locker was quite stressful. Having like 6-7 classes a day and having to have all the books for those particular classes and all the homework done for those particular classes became extremely overwhelming. Um, I personally, for me, uniforms just weren't really working in terms of sensory issues, because a lot of dyspraxic people have also sensory issues there as well. And for me, the uniform was a sensory overload. The texture of the socks on my skin and the texture of like the jumper and stuff, it was already a sensory overload just putting on the uniform and sitting in it all day. And also the corridors were really packed, and you'd have to get up and move to different classes, and the corridors were really packed, and it became really overwhelming with the lights and all the other pupils and the sound, and that would cause me to get a sensory overload and have panic attacks and stuff, etc. So those things kind of became another challenge then, moving on from primary to secondary.
Okay. And friendship wise and social wise, how did that impact on you? Because things were getting different. The tactics were different from primary to secondary.
Yeah, things are more cliquey and stuff like that, and I would try to make friends, and I wouldn't really last. A lot of friends sort of came and went. Um, so I would just kind of like move on from different groups, and a lot of people, stopped liking me for whatever reason because I just wasn't fitting in with any group. I was kind of bouncing around from different group to different group until eventually I just kind of would just kind of focus on getting in there and getting my leaving cert and getting my work done. Really, at that point, it just wasn't really for me. I just didn't really fit in there, I guess.
And you had to change secondary schools quite early
Yeah,
on.
the
Talk to me
first
about that.
the first secondary school that I went to was very exam orientated. They were very academic, very focused on getting good grades, and they weren't super understanding, in my experience anyways, of what dyspraxia was and the supports I needed. I just felt like a really big burden, and it wasn't working out for me. So I moved to a different school that had a better understanding of dyspraxia, and things still weren't perfect, and there were still issues there with trying to get people to understand, but it was a lot better than the original school. So things improved in terms of like teachers understanding and maybe more support in school, but it's still challenging moving schools. It was
hugely challenging. And what worked for you in the new school and what didn't work for you?
Well, a lot of it depended on the teachers. Like, some teachers were super chill with me emailing my homework to them, especially for subjects like English or like geography, or subjects where you have to type a lot. And that was great because I would just email my homework and then they would correct it that way, and it was perfect. Also, having movement breaks was extremely important. Like, to this day, I cannot concentrate sitting still for, like, the classes were an hour long, so I really needed movement breaks, and some teachers were okay with me just putting up my hand and then being like, yeah, on you go, or me just kind of giving them a nod and heading out to the bathroom and everything. But some of them were like not too cool about it because they felt like if I was going to the bathroom all the time, the other people would want to go to the bathroom all the time. But it's extremely necessary for me to concentrate and to get my work done. And I would particularly go outside. I have movement exercises that I do that an OT showed me that really helped me, and those are essential, especially for hour-long classes and especially for exams. So that really worked. I typed for my exams, which was it doesn't work for everyone, but for me it was extremely necessary to type for my exams, because I can't write for longer than like 2 minutes without cramping up. So that really helped, but it's just important to note that a laptop and all these tools are given so that I can be on the same page as everyone. You know, they're not like an extra little thing, so they're my responsibility. Like, it is my responsibility, obviously, to use the laptop appropriately, but for example, it became a bit more of a stress because, you know, it was like, well, you've got to be responsible and you've got to get the USB key and you've got to go to the printer and you've got to print it and you've got to then give the USB back to the teacher and then go back and get the USB key later. And it just became like an extra stress, which was not great because no one else really had to deal with that. And I was dealing with the stress of exams and trying to organize myself for that alongside now with this extra added thing. So it's really good to try and find a good system in place so that everything's compared and that individual child has the same chance and opportunity and the same stress level.
Well, on the same par.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
So you were still at a disadvantage, even though they were giving you equipment to try and help you.
It got better as I kind of brought that attention to them. It got a little bit easier. And during the actual leaving cert, there was a person, because I got my own centre, there was somebody there who did all that for me. But originally for summer exams and Christmas exams, it was kind of all left up to me.
And you had to kind of find people to figure out what was happening. Nobody came to you and told you. It's like, am I typing? Where am I typing? Is there going to be a plug? So you had all that to organize. Okay. And what didn't work for you in the sense of the anxiety and at times you couldn't go into school? What was that like for you?
I mean, it was really frustrating because I wanted to be there in terms of like getting my education and getting a leaving cert. At that point, I wasn't really there for much else because school just wasn't for me. I knew it wasn't going to be for me, and that hopefully college or whatever I decided to do after school would, you know, things would change then and I could work on stuff then. So not being able to come in was really frustrating because I wanted to be there, I wanted to learn, I wanted to try and do well to the best of my ability. And it depended on the teacher. Like, some teachers were super understanding and super chill, and like if I came in late, they'd know it's because I was anxious. They'd always let me go outside and take movement breaks, or if I was having a panic attack, you know, they'd be fine with, you know, me needing to take time out and stuff. But other teachers, not so much. You know, they, you know, I presume they presumed because I wasn't coming in that I just didn't want to be there, or, you know, like there was a lack of understanding, and they would say, okay, if you're having a panic attack, you need to go find this particular person. And then it's kind of hard when you're having a panic attack and you feel like you're going to die to like figure out and go and knock on the staff room door or run around and try and find, you know, I'm not saying that like there should be someone like watching me 24/7 or anything. I'm just saying, like, if that teacher wasn't in, then I didn't know what to do, and I spent a lot of time running around corridors, like trying not to have panic attacks and stuff. So it was quite frustrating. And just to be aware that like a lot of dyspraxic people associate school with anxiety and have anxiety, and it's just as important as all the other symptoms of dyspraxia, you know.
Yeah. And just before we move on from secondary school, the present situation with the pandemic, have you a message for people going back to school, because they were probably already anxious about going back to school, and now they have the added anxiety of probably not knowing where their class is? For primary school, I know they're always in the one class, but some secondary classes, I'm hearing, because people I work with, some people are staying the third, you have to stay in the one class, and there's going to be different, one way in and one way out, and all different things. So for somebody with dyspraxia, that's going to be an added burden for them. So would you have any message to give to them?
You know, just that it does get better, and I know school can be a really anxious place for people, but you know, it does get better when you get out of school, and things are definitely getting easier for me. And you're not, it's not your fault. Like, anxiety is not your fault. Don't ever feel guilty about it. Don't ever feel like a burden, because you're most certainly not. And try to know, you know, to remember that, yes, of course, we all have to protect each other at this time. We all have to be safe. But, you know, you have dyspraxia and you struggle to concentrate, and you need those movement breaks. And, you know, you're not being a burden. It's like, you know, somebody wearing glasses. It's the same. It's a tool to help you learn to be at the level that you need to be on par with everybody else. So that's really important to remember.
And I think it's important to say at the moment now, we know a lot of schools, the teachers, the SNAs, the cleaning staff are working really, really hard to make the school clean and safe for everybody coming in. And that's to give that worry over to them. And what I would suggest as well is maybe to have some advocate for them in school that they can go to if they're confused, to maybe get that in place before they start or just when they start. And also for parents, I know you're probably anxious as well with the start of school and COVID and worrying about your children starting, but mind yourselves and mind your anxiety, because our children feed off our anxiety, and if we can show them how we're minding ourselves through this, then that will help them. So moving on to college, which maybe the leaving cert onto the college, what would you like to talk about there, that transition and getting the results and what happened to you around that? I know this year is a difficult year for some people for results, but you did have your issues as well.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, for me, like going to school every day was quite difficult. I would be anxious, I would have panic attacks, and I wasn't in my mental health just wasn't in a good place, but I pushed myself through it to be like, to get myself a leaving cert, to give myself as many opportunities as I could after school. You know, I had worked really, really hard for this. Like, just being there was like a huge struggle. So getting the leaving cert was a really great thing, and I worked very hard on it. And I did do very well. I was happy with all my results, and I was just scrolling down the page, and there was one result, and I actually ended up failing higher level maths. It was a bad day for me. It was the timing that I struggled with. Of course, the organization part was what I really struggled with, and I was feeling extra anxious that day because obviously higher level maths was a bit daunting for me, even though I had done quite well in my mocks, and before I had done quite well in the past. You know, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to fail. I did not expect to do amazingly, but I surprisingly failed. And that meant that because I failed high level maths, you have to pass maths to get into any college. So even though I'd gotten enough points to get into the courses that I wanted to get into, I didn't get a single offer on my CEO. So you can imagine how like devastating that felt after working so hard and being there. And you know, I didn't go to the Debs, I didn't do any of that kind of stuff because I was there to get my leaving cert, and it just felt like all my hard work just slipped away through my hands and everything I'd done just didn't matter, which to me just doesn't make sense, because the course that I wanted to do were mainly music and English orientated, and I didn't even really need maths for them. Like, it just seems kind of unfair that if you fail maths, then that's it. Like, to me, that is not a fair education system, but that's just my opinion on it. But anyways, I failed by like, I think, what was it, point something percent. I failed, not even a full mark I needed, not even a full mark, like a point something mark I failed. And so I appealed my results and ended up getting a good few more marks. One of the questions hadn't been marked right. I ended up getting a few more marks, and I passed, and I ended up getting in like last minute. Like, I found out on the Friday that I was going to DCU and was in on the Monday. It was crazy.
Yeah, but you missed the DARE orientation and everything, so you had to try and find your own way around the college.
Yeah.
And
There needs to be a better system for everyone, not just dyspraxic people, for the way that they correct exams, because I had to wait the whole summer like to get my appeal, and college had already started. I missed orientation, I missed the DARE, and I needed that before getting around the college, because dyspraxic people struggle with having a sense of direction and organization and things like that. So I missed out on that, and that was quite stressful, and I was already anxious enough going in. So I think definitely that the way they exam and how long they have people waiting is kind of ridiculous, and I missed out on something that I shouldn't have, because I didn't fail. Actually, technically it wasn't my fault. So yeah,
that was tough for you.
that was really,
it's going to be tough for the leaving certs this year. Some people will be okay with it, but we wait to see what the results are. They've had a long wait as well. They're not going to get the results till 9th of September. So our thoughts are with you, and just mind yourselves. Yeah, no matter what, you can do it. Exactly. Because your sister didn't get the points she wanted for nursing, and she did a PLC course, and she's now going into her 3rd year of nursing. So there are ways of getting what you want. Yeah, working hard. So what about transitioning into college? How was that for you?
For me, it worked a lot better because I was able to, wear my own clothes and be a little more comfortable. Obviously, there was less anxiety because in college you don't need permission to leave the room. You can go, and I can go take as many movement breaks as I need and get back, and that just suits me a lot well. And also the fact that I'm studying something that I love and I'm actually passionate about is makes things a lot easier. Every dyspraxic person, once they find their passion, they really do excel in. They're everyone I've met that has dyspraxia, they're very talented people in what they love, because people do get down on themselves because they're not the most academic people, and they find school hard. But once you find that one thing that you love and you're passionate about, like you know how to work hard. So I feel like a lot of people do really well. So college was a lot easier with more like-minded people that even know about. All of my friends know that I'm dyspraxic. We joke around about it in a nice way. Like if I'll drop things during my lectures, I'll be like, how many things will Sarahann drop in a lecture? And like I'm in on the joke. I find it funny, and they'll always help me pick up my stuff and everything and be aware of it, which is just it's really great. So college is definitely something that really suits me.
So it suits you, yeah.
It's not for everyone, but for me, it's definitely.
I think you're 100% right, especially the people I'm working with as well. College depends on the support you get in college, like when you were diagnosed, how comfortable, because some people are still only getting diagnosed quite late, even late on in secondary and sometimes even early college years. And it's a lot to take in to understand what works for me. And that's what the message we're trying to get. What do I need for me? Not a universal thing that helps all people with dyspraxia. What works for me?
Yeah. And
then being around the right friends and being accepted. So it supports acceptance, and mainly is how we accept ourselves. And bless you.
Thank you.
So now I have some questions. Yeah, I just nearly forgot about that. Okay, the first question is, my son finally got his provisional diagnosis of dyspraxia from the HSC today after psychology and OT assessments. We are waiting for a paediatrician to confirm. How can I find out more about dyspraxia? Well, I'll answer that first. The Dyspraxia Ireland website, www.dyspraxia.ie, has a lot of information. If you want to contact them on info@dyspraxia.ie, or the helpline is 01874 7085, and the lovely Faye or Harry will answer your calls. The next part of the question is, how can I help him in lieu of long HSC service lists? He also has ASD, so the waiting lists are endless, and can a GP confirm the diagnosis, or must it be a paediatrician? I'm feeling very lost and I want to help my son. I can understand that as a parent. It's a very difficult road, and you're constantly fighting and advocating for them. And a lot of people around you probably don't understand what dyspraxia or ASD is and the implications of it. So it can be hard to find people to talk to. Regarding the paediatrician now is sought for a diagnosis as well. It's just to eliminate any other medical conditions. How you can help, I know the waiting lists are very long and it can depend on county and county, and then of course with COVID now it has made everything much longer. What I would suggest is trying to find groups with either dyspraxia or ASD that have children similar age to your son. At least then he can start mixing with people and see that other people are similar to him. It's great therapy for him. Also for yourself, either find some support groups in your area, and again, Dyspraxia Ireland will help you find them, so that you can talk to other people and get support for yourself. Because remember, as I said earlier, if we're very anxious, our child will be very anxious. We have to mind, mums and dads and parents and caregivers have to mind ourselves first to be able to mind our children and to look after ourselves. Second question is, hi Lorraine and Sarahann, can a child with dyspraxia only have some of the listed signs? My daughter, age 12, is a bit clumsy, can't ride a bike, has poor spatial awareness and is very immature for her age. She can display obsessive behaviour and suffers from shyness with her peers, yet she is great at reading, spelling and self-expression. She was assessed at the age of 5 due to not reaching milestones like walking at 2 years old. She did not get a diagnosis of dyspraxic. At the time, I have wondered, could she be dyspraxic? Well, mums always have a really good gut feeling. So if you feel your daughter's dyspraxic, she probably is. Also, not everybody ticks every box when you look at the description of dyspraxia. Like there's 3 of us in the house that's dyspraxic. There's a lot similar. There's a lot different. There's also some co-occurring conditions with us as well. So some are more prevalent than others. But from what I'm reading there, it certainly does tick a lot of the boxes. So I would suggest contacting Dyspraxia Ireland, and they will give you more information on where you can get your daughter assessed. So that's the end of our talk. I've only 2 questions here. I just want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Sarahann for allowing her mother to interview her over Zoom.
Talk about me bum shuffling as a child.
And revealing your bum shuffling as a child. Well, I bum shuffled as well, so
yeah,
like
totally
my daughter.
Yeah.
And your sister didn't. She crawled and walked, so she had something different. Mary Kate, my other daughter, is, I said, going into her 3rd year as a student nurse, and she is working in A&E at the moment. So she is really pushing herself, and things are harder. And she gets more tired than everyone's, but it's our passion. Sarahann has a passion for music, and it's a pity we didn't have the guitar there. You could have given us a lovely song. She's a really good musician.
Oh yeah.
Sorry?
I was just going to plug my Instagram.
Go on it, yeah. Go
if
ahead.
you want to see some of my poetry and some future covers and stuff on my Instagram, just follow me. It's at Sarahann Mooney, just my name, SARAHANNMOONEY, and you can check out my poetry there. I have poems on dyspraxia and anxiety and stuff like that, so if you want to check them out or show anybody, that'd be cool.
No problem. If anybody wants to get in contact with me, I work with a lot of families and individuals with dyspraxia and co-occurring neurodiverse conditions. You can get contact me through Dyspraxia Ireland. Thank you so much to Wexford Public Library for inviting us to talk. And thank you, if you've listened, for taking the time to listen to us. I hope it was of some help to you. If you want any more talks, just let us know. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.